Guys, we are smack dab in the middle of Star Trek Online's 2021 event campaign, which means if you throw a little bit of money into the TFO events, you're probably close to earning your prize if you haven't already. Now, if you're like me, you've probably been thinking for a while now, what lockbox or promo ship am I going to pick up from this event? It can be kind of an overwhelming question given just how many ships are available to pick from. So I decided to make a list of my top 10 choices for this year's event campaign. First up, in no particular order, the Atlas Prototype Dreadnought. I imagine this is going to be a really popular choice given the fact that it's got the DPRM on it. The DPRM is widely regarded as the best console in the game, but because it comes off of a lockbox ship, it's normally really difficult to get. The ship itself isn't bad either. It makes for a good tank, but it can also be set up as a decent damage boat due to its 5-3 weapons layout. It's also got that classic TOS era look, which is always fun to have. While this is a good ship, I wouldn't call it a great ship. However you set it up, there are probably other ships that can do that build better. The ship's popularity comes entirely from its console. Next is the Inquiry Battlecruiser. Being a miracle worker ship sporting an intel seat, this thing is fantastic for energy weapon builds. It also has a decent trait for beam overload. It kind of works like emergency weapon cycle, except it's tied into emergency power to shields. It's not the best trait in the game, but it does make a good substitute if you don't have some of the other high-end beam overload traits. Next up is another miracle worker ship, the D7 Miracle Worker Flight Deck Carrier. It's a miracle worker ship, so again, great for energy weapons, but it also supports a secondary command seat. Unfortunately, that command seat only goes up to Lieutenant, so if you're looking to put a torpedo build on this thing, you're only going to get Concentrate Firepower 2. This one also comes with some unique weapons and some fighter pets, but frankly, they're kind of underwhelming. The advanced disruptors only come in beam arrays, so you're basically limiting yourself to a broadside build if you're going to use those. And the damage from the fighter pets really isn't that great in comparison to something like the Class C shuttles. Now, the Federation side has a Constitution class version of this ship, but I chose the Klingon one because it's got the better trait, the ruin of our enemies. That said, if you wanted to go with the Constitution class anyway, I wouldn't blame you. It's a Constitution class. Speaking of Constitution class ships, the next one on the list is the Mirror Warship. I actually just did a build video on this ship, so if you want a closer look at what it can do, definitely go check that out. The ship has a unique bridge officer layout, having 2 commander level seats. It also has a lieutenant commander intel seat, meaning this is a really good ship for energy weapon builds. It also has one of the most sought after starship traits in the game, Terran Goodbye. One thing I didn't talk about in my build video is this ship's console, Interphasic Rift Generator. This console's passive has a really nice buff to crit severity as well as a little bit to hull cap, and as we know, hull cap feeds into Tyler's duality, so that's going to be a little bit more crit chance as well. There really aren't any downsides here. This is the only one on the list that has a good ship to fly, a good console, and a good trait all in the same package. Plus it's a Constitution class. Though if you prefer something a little more old school, there's always the next one on the list, the Temporal Light Cruiser. This ship is undoubtedly my favorite on this list, and not just because it's a Constitution class. Actually, technically 2 Constitution classes, because it's the original and the refit. It has a 5-3 weapons layout, it's a temporal ship, but it's also got a command seat so you can put a decent torpedo build on it as well. It also has a unique and rather versatile bridge officer seating. It only has 4 seats, but none of them go lower than Lieutenant Commander, so you're going to have a good amount of high-level bridge officer abilities. You can outfit this ship literally any way you want. I've run beam overload on it for years, I've wanted to put a torpedo build on it for months because of that command seat, and because it's a temporal ship, I could probably make a decent EPG build on it too. I already have this ship on an alternate character, but I like it so much I'm seriously considering picking up a second one through this event for my main character. Though I am very much torn between that ship and the next one on the list, the Section 31 Heavy Command Battlecruiser. The fact that this is one of Augie's favorite ships in the game should really tell you a lot about its performance. Not only is this thing an absolutely fantastic torpedo boat, but it also has 2 unique features on it, Swarm Mode and Dark Mode. Dark Mode is just an era-appropriate equivalent to the cloaking device that all the Section 31 ships seem to have, and Swarm Mode makes a big cloud of swarmer drones that surround your ship and damage anything that gets too close. According to Augie, this mode does an impressive amount of damage. It's almost like having an experimental weapon that doesn't take up a slot. The downside, though, is that there is an issue with Swarm Mode. It's not really something that's going to affect you, but it is going to affect your teammates. When Swarm Mode is active, it causes the Section 31 Battlecruiser's hitbox to become massive, like insanely massive. So it makes it really hard for anyone else on the team to target enemy ships, because they keep clicking you by accident. Since we're talking about torpedo builds, let's move on to the next ship, the Nokjedge Intel Battlecruiser. Being an intel ship, this isn't something I would put a torpedo build on, but the ship does come with Ceaseless Momentum, a must-have starship trait for torpedo builds. While the trait is great, I feel like it often overshadows the ship itself. It's actually a really great beam overload build. It's a battlecruiser, it's an intel ship, also it's a giant knife mounted onto a starship. That's just funny to me. Next ship is also really good for energy weapon builds, the Vodwar Miracle Worker Juggernaut. Not gonna lie, I'm not a big fan of this ship. It's too big, it handles like a drunk whale, and it kind of looks like one too. That said, it's a Miracle Worker ship with an intel seat, so it is a fantastic energy weapon setup. The ship also features a Juggernaut array, which, when activated, fires off a massive burst of Polaron damage in front of it. Though if you prefer a small, nimble escort, this next ship might suit you better. The Deimos Pilot Destroyer. While I do enjoy pilot ships because of the pilot maneuvers, I'm not a big fan of pilot seating. Fortunately, this ship also has an intel seat, making it decent for energy weapon builds. The main reason this ship is on the list is because of its console, Immolating Phaser Lance. The console charges up to 6 stacks of the Phaser Lance that can be fired off in rapid succession. Since it deals phaser damage, it makes an excellent addition to a phaser build, but the console itself is powerful enough that you can really put it on anything you want. Also, because this console can be fired off so quickly, it pairs really well with universal designs, the starship trade-off of the Crossfield Refit. Sadly, the Crossfield Refit cannot be chosen from the event campaign prize because of how recently it's been released. Now onto the last ship on the list, the Mirror Strikewing Escort. This is another one that's really mostly here for its trait, Superior Area Denial. This trait alters the firing modes of your pets, making them exceptionally powerful, so if you're a fan of carrier builds, this is a must. It's also useful for tank builds or cannon builds due to the debuff it gives with Fire at Will and Cannon Scatter Volley. The ship also comes with the Mirror Universe Class C shuttles, which are probably one of the best hangar pets in the game right now. Like the Prime Universe versions that come on the Baran and the Earhart, they don't have a torpedo, so they're not going to steal your concentrate firepower, and they have Beam Overload 3, so they're going to do some decent damage. However, instead of Ace Beam, the Mirror Universe versions use Tractor Beam, which will deal a little bit more damage and add some control effects to your enemies. The ship itself isn't bad either. With its Bridge Officer seating, you make a decent energy build with it. However, its specialization seating does leave something to be desired. It has a temporal seat and an intel seat, but both are pretty low level, so you won't be able to get max level versions of OSS or recursive shearing. So yeah, those are my top 10 picks for the event campaign prize. Before I wrap up, there are still a few ships worth mentioning that didn't make the list. The Centaur is a very powerful ship with a really good trait on it, but I didn't put it on the list because I kind of hate this ship. It's really big, it's really difficult to fly, and it is just butt ugly. Also, this is one of those Infinity ships that gets added to the low-buy store on occasion, so you can still get this on the exchange for a decent price. There's also the Styx, which is a very popular tank, but honestly, there are other ships that you could tank in just as well. Though it is worth mentioning that this ship has the highest DPS record for ISE currently. Not sure how that happened, but I'm betting it was with a Torpedo Mine Layer build. And lastly, the 26th Century Temporal Heavy Dreadnoughts. I actually really like these ships, I really do. They're big, they're goofy, they actually have decent seating on them that I can make them into a good tank build or a decent Torp Mine Layer build, but they are so big and difficult to fly, it's really difficult to classify them as anything other than a meme boat. Anyway, I hope you guys found this list helpful for narrowing down your choices for the event campaign prize. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, all that YouTube stuff down below. I really do appreciate it. My name's Stu, and does it sound like I'm starting to lose my voice? It feels like I'm starting to lose my voice. I've been talking to a camera for a really long time.